Today's episode of Just the Tip Tuesday is brought to you by CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. Not sure which torch you need to get the most out of your machine? Head on over to ckworldwide.com and click on the Torch Selector tab to see the best torch for the type of work that you're doing. They take you through a step-by-step process to determine the best torch for your application based on the type of material you're working on, the thickness of the materials, whether your machine is gas-cooled or air-cooled, and the intended amperage range. In addition, CK has a wide variety of different torch setups so you can get into all those hard-to-reach places, like micro torches for small access holes, barrel torches for mechanized TIG welding, flex heads to get that custom angle, or my favorite, the flex lock, which allows me to adjust my torch or even swap out to a different torch head setup in a flash. You can get all your genuine CK Worldwide parts and accessories through your local CK Worldwide distributor. And if you're not sure where that is, just click on the Find a Dealer tab on their website and punch in your zip code. It's that easy. CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. Now let's get into the show. Episode of Just a Tip Tuesday. Today I want to answer a question that's pretty common in the world of welding, and that is, should I go to school to learn to weld, or should I just get an entry-level job and fake it till I make it? Well, I'm obviously a little bit biased on this subject because I've been teaching welding for the past 8 years. I've also attended 3 different welding schools, one in high school, one while I was in the Marine Corps, and then one when I got out of the Marines, I attended the Ironworkers Apprenticeship Program. I've also worked in several shops that hire people with no experience to do a skilled trade job like welding. I'm not saying that it never works out for them. I'm just saying that it's usually far and in between that somebody actually works out and prospers in the trade if they only have experience related to that, that first break that they got, doing some OJT, getting into a company with having little to no experience. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of going to a welding school or going directly into industry. I'll also discuss some of the things you can do to be successful in your career regardless of the path you take. In my opinion, one of the biggest advantages of going to a welding school is that you get to learn multiple welding processes, and you get to kind of understand the fundamentals and the settings of each of the processes, the work angle, the travel speeds, the wire feed speeds, everything that goes into it, all the different techniques and variations and applications for this stuff. Whereas if you go on the job training, you may only learn like short circuit MIG, or you may only learn steel TIG or aluminum TIG or stick welding. It really depends. And if you go through a welding school, it's so structured to where you're going to learn many different processes. So typically a lot of schools are going to start off on shielded metal arc welding. They'll move into gas metal arc welding. You'll do some flux core, self-shielded and gas shielded. Do some aluminum MIG welding, and then once you get into TIG welding, you'll do steel, stainless, and aluminum. I mean, that's a good overview of most programs. That's the stuff that they should be teaching in the program if you're going to go and pay to attend a welding school. But as I said, if you go on the job, you're only going to learn that one specific process that they do in that facility. So let's say you've got 2 individuals that apply for this company, and both of them get hired. One of them has a background. They went to welding school. The other one doesn't have a background in much. They might have a small MIG machine at the house. They've been watching a lot of YouTube videos, and they're relatively decent at what they're doing. They have somewhat of a competency, and they can perform, some basic tasks. Well, when that job is over, now we have to find another job. And the person that went through welding school, they have several different processes. So they can apply for a company that does stick welding or MIG welding or flux core or TIG welding, because they have experience in all those different processes. The other individual who didn't have any experience, they're going to have to go to another company and say, hey, I just know how to do gas metal arc welding or MIG welding. That's the only one I know how to do right now. I learned some stuff at the other place that I was at, but it only lasted for like 6 months. So think about that going into it. I mean, that's the biggest thing is going through a welding school, you're going to learn multiple processes. In addition to that, you're going to learn not just welding, but you're going to learn cutting. You're going to learn shop safety. You're going to learn blueprints, welding symbols, all that good stuff. All that stuff that's going to make you a more well-rounded welder. Now, if you're a fake it till you make it type person, you get in there, you don't know anything about safety for the most part. So you don't know how to protect yourself from the potential hazards. And a lot of companies, a lot of the ones that I've been to, they have some pretty lax standards. And a lot of people, they're kind of prone to injury because they don't enforce a lot of the safety regulations like safety glasses and, having the right shade hood on and, wearing gloves and wearing jackets and all that other good stuff that I talked about, like during the episode I did with PPE, both episode 1 and 2 on Just the Tip Tuesday. They don't have that understanding of, what's going to keep them safe. They don't know how dangerous a lot of these pieces of equipment can be. I've seen a lot of accidents in the shop, people smashing their fingers in a shear, when that material hold comes down and they put their hands past the guard. These are things that should be taught day one, and a lot of that lies on the company. You shouldn't, anytime you walk into a shop, you should not work on a piece of equipment if you've not been properly trained. Even if you're kind of familiar with that type of, machine, if it's a different brand than what you're used to, maybe ask somebody in the shop, hey, you mind taking a couple minutes and show me how to operate this piece of equipment safely. And that goes for anybody, whether you've been to school or whether you're trying to get into a job without going to school. In addition to that, as a student coming out of a welding school, you're going to be a little bit more versatile because while you're in school, you should be, working on some projects. You should be cutting your own material, fabbing things up, making sure things are square, learning how, a sequence of operations as far as, tack welding and heat distortion, how to prevent that. Whereas if you come in off the streets, you may not have any idea of any of that stuff. And hopefully the company's not just going to turn you loose. They're going to put you with a mentor and put you in there. But I've seen a lot of companies where they're just like, okay, we need people so bad, we'll just keep cycling them through. We'll just hire people. And then if they work out, they work out. If not, we'll get rid of them. We'll hire somebody else. They have a very high turnover rate. And that's kind of one of the reasons because they don't have very stringent hiring policies. Like when you bring somebody in, you should be testing them to make sure that they're competent to do the job that you're hiring them for. Not all companies are going to do that. Another thing you want to look at is you're going to be, if you go to a welding school, you're going to learn on multiple types of machines. So different colors of machines. You got reds and blues and greens and yellows and all this other good stuff. Whereas, if you go with that one company, you're going to get, tuned in on one specific brand, and that's the only one you're going to be really comfortable with. And if you ever have to run something different, it's going to be, you're going to be a little hesitant about doing that because you're not familiar with that type of machine. Whereas like at our school, I put students on different machines all the time. As soon as I see that they're getting comfortable on one machine, I'll put them on another machine. It throws them off. But you have to get used to using these different types of machines. Yes, at the end of the day, wire feed speed and volts and amps and all that stuff should be pretty much the same. But if you've been welding for any amount of time, you know that every welding machine runs a little bit different. Every brand of machine runs a little bit different. So knowing how to make your adjustment, what works good on these machines, that's some of the stuff you're going to learn in school. That's also some of the stuff you're going to learn on the job if you've been exposed to that machine before. But like I said, a lot of companies, they get one brand and that's the one they stick with and that's the one you got to use. So now if you transfer companies and they use a different color machine, you're going to be really apprehensive about operating that piece of equipment because you're not really comfortable with it. In addition to all that, if you go to a welding school, you're going to be able to earn some welding certifications. Now, don't get hung up on welding certifications. Like I tell my students all the time, it's not a necessity. Welding certifications are not a necessity. A lot of companies, they don't care if you have them or not. But what most companies are going to have is they're going to have a weld test before you get in there. So if you're at school and you take a welding certification test, what that's going to do is that's going to build up your confidence. It's going to help you, not be as nervous when you come in. Like I see people all the time, they get so freaked out because they got to take a welding test. Don't get freaked out. Welding certifications are going to help build that confidence to where when you walk in there and they're like, oh yeah, we need you to take a welding test, you're going to be like, okay, what's the setup? What type of material do I need? What's the position? What's the process? Let's go ahead and do this. Because you've got that confidence. You've been through a welding certification test before. Most likely you probably failed one or two of them. And that's a good thing too, because you learn just as much what not to do in a situation as what to do in a situation. So in addition to that, if you go to earn a certification for a company, those certifications, they do not belong to you. They belong to that company. The company paid for them. Whereas if you earn them through school, that's got your name on it. That's something that you carry out, you walk with out that door. You've got a welding certification. Like I said, it's the employer's responsibility, but that certification shows a level of proficiency. It shows that at one point in time, you were able to pass this test. you should be able to do it again. So it's kind of a safe bet to hire somebody that does have welding certs and then just get them trained up to the company standards or give them a company cert and make sure they're able to pass it then. In addition to that, networking, and this is probably like the biggest thing that you're going to get out of a welding school, is the networking and the job placement and the assistance that you're going to get. You've got an entire support team if you go through a welding school. Networking, like I said, is the biggest thing. Let's say you've got 20 kids in your class or 20 students in your class. You've got, including you, now you have 19 potential people to help you find a job once you get out. I have students that help each other out all the time. They're like, hey, I just got a job over this company. They're hiring like 3 more people, and they'll go tell their 3 friends from welding school. And that's just how it works. Boom. Next thing you know, you guys are in there, you're working together. You got a good rapport built up, and you're cranking work out. And, if something goes down and one of you leaves, guess what? As soon as they say, hey, I got 2 or 3 more spots open up over here, you can jump over there. If you're doing on the job, if you go right into industry, you don't have that assistance. You don't have that network. You don't have that team that's able to support you. In addition to that, if my students lose their job, they know that they can just give me a call or text or stop by the school one day and say, hey, Mr. Becker, I need help finding another job. I got laid off at this one, or I just can't take it. They're all over the place over there. I can't work in that type of environment. Boom, done. I'll make a couple phone calls, get them a weld test set up, and then, they're off to the next job. Also, with a welding school, you're most likely going to start off at a higher salary because you have more skills. The more stuff you have listed on the resume, the more knowledge, skills, and abilities you have, the higher potential you have to negotiate a higher salary. But if you're coming in, and you're like, hey, I don't have any experience, but I've always wanted to learn how to weld, I'll be here every day, you got a good can-do attitude, you're probably not going to start off at the highest possible pay. They're going to bring you in at a lower rate because you don't have the knowledge, skills, and abilities that somebody that went through welding school does. So take that into consideration as well. Another thing is, let's talk about costs. If you go the on-the-job route, you go directly into industry, you don't have to pay anything, right? You just get a job, you go to work, boom, you're done. Whereas if you go to a tech school, you're looking at roughly $5,000 for a local tech school that's ran by the county or the state. Roughly, well, I'd say probably $5,000 to $7,000 because inflation's going up, everything, supply chain issues, like everybody's adjusting their tuition rates right now. So you're probably looking at anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 to go to a tech school. These are it's a good option. It's about a year. The problem is you're going to have like really high class sizes. So they're going to put like 20, 25 students in there. And a lot of times it's going to be a mix of high school and adult students. The equipment's always beat to hell. The budgets are really low. So they really don't have a whole lot of money to fix the machines or, maintain the supplies and materials you need to get adequate training. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for all of them, but a lot of them that are, state and, county ran, that's the problem that a lot of them are going to run into. Now, other schools, you're probably looking at about $14K to $18K for a 6-month welding school. In my opinion, these are probably the best ones to go to because you're going to get in there, you're going to get all the training you need, $14,000 to $18,000, and then you're done. And depending on your situation, you can take out a loan that you don't have to start paying back for 6 months, very similar to going to college. But instead of a $60,000 bill, once you get done, you're looking at about $14,000 to $18,000. The advantage to going to these types of schools is there's smaller class sizes, roughly 15 students to 1 instructor, or hopefully less. Like I said, if you go to one of these tech schools that's a mix of high school and adult, you're probably looking at 20, 25 students, sometimes more. Just make sure, that you've got a good instructor to teacher ratio, instructor to student ratio. You want a lower student count to instructor. So like I said, 15 to 1 is ideal. Anything less than that is just freaking awesome. But like I said, if you go the OJT route, you don't have to pay for anything. You've incurred no debt, and you're right out in industry. But again, you're probably going to start off at a lower pay rate. Another thing with the going to school is they pretty much have flexible schedules. So most of these programs, they're going to have a day class and they're going to have a night class. So you can, work during the day and then attend class at night, or you can attend class during the day and then work at night. It may not be an industry, but like I said, within 6 months, you're done. Yes, you got to invest some time. It's a pain in the ass. I see students go through it all the time. They're trying to work and support a family, and then they're going to school 4 or 5 days a week. So yeah, it's a bit of a struggle for 6 months, 7 months, you can knock that out. You can do that. If you're not going to go to a school, the best thing you can do if you want to go the OJT route, go direct, pipeline right into the industry, you need to find a good mentor. The best thing you can do is find someone in the business where you can be their helper and learn everything you can. If you're working with the same person day in and day out, you kind of build that rapport, you build that relationship. They're teaching you all kinds of stuff. And then hopefully, at some point you'll be able to separate and go off on your own. It's definitely going to take a little bit longer than, going through a school, because you have to learn things on the job as they arise. It's not a structured setup curriculum. So you kind of have to wait for the problem to rear its head before you have to develop a solution. Whereas in welding school, you're going to run into problems every day, and you're going to learn how to troubleshoot and fix and repair things. Things are going to break. You're going to learn how to work on the equipment. The welding machines are going to go down. You're going to learn how to do that. Set machines up from scratch, right out of the box, put it all together. A lot of people don't have any experience with that. These are things you're going to learn in a school that you're most likely not going to learn in industry. Another thing you want to be careful of, do some research. If you're planning on going to a school, do some research on the school. Check out, different reviews on websites. Go down there. Don't just talk to the recruiter. See if you can line up an appointment and talk to the welding instructor. Make sure you get all your questions answered. There's a lot of schools out there. There's a lot of great schools out there. There's a lot of crappy schools out there. So make sure, get in there, talk to the welding instructor. See if you can talk to some of the students. Hey, how are you liking the program? How's things going? Are you getting everything you need out of it? Are you getting what you paid for? Another thing you should be careful of is be aware of the welding schools that say you're going to get a degree. Make sure that they have a legit accreditation and that they're a not-for-profit institution. So if somebody's going to offer you an AA degree or an AS degree, make sure that those credits are transferable. I fell into this trap as a young college student. I went to a place called ITT Tech, and about my second term in there, I realized that, hey, they said they were accredited, but none of these credits actually transfer to any other state schools. They only transfer to their sister schools. So they fall under that same, I don't want to say fake accreditation, but they've got the same financial partner. So those are the only schools you can go to. So if I wanted to pursue my bachelor's degree in construction, I had to do an AS degree in drafting at the campus in Orlando. And then I had to drive all the way out to Tampa, which is like 2.5 hours away from this school, to attend, to take classes for my bachelor's degree. And at the end of the day, it turns out that they weren't even transferable credits, and that they didn't even offer the bachelor's degree over there like they said they did. So do some research. Make sure that it is a legit institution. Make sure their credits are transferable to a state college if that's the route you want to go. There's not too many schools that offer a legitimate AS degree. For welding, there's a couple up in, you got Pennsylvania, you got Ohio, Michigan, Texas. I think there's one out in Oregon and one in California. So probably 6 or 7 throughout the entire U.S. So if you're in this, lower southeast corner of the U.S., you're probably not going to find a school that's going to be able to offer you a legitimate AS degree. So don't let somebody talk you into, you need a degree for welding, because most of the employers that are out there, they don't care if you have a degree. They don't care if you have certifications. At the end of the day, can you do the work? Can you perform what you say you can do? Here's a weld test, proof's in the pudding. Go ahead, do the weld test. You either can weld or you can't, and it doesn't matter how big of a stack of certs you bring in there, because they're not supposed to accept them as, certifications for their company. They're supposed to test you and administer you under their welding procedures, their codes, their standards, and all that stuff. And a lot of companies, they just don't have that stuff set up. So don't let somebody fool you into saying, oh yeah, you need a degree, and if you come to our school for 18 months and you spend this $36,000, we'll help you get a job. You're going to end up getting the same job that the guy that, didn't take any school, or the kid that went through tech school or vocational school. You guys are going to end up working at the same place. The biggest difference is the guy that just walked in off the street, he's got zero debt. The kid coming out of welding school, he's in it for anywhere from 7 to 18K, and then you're in it for 36K, but you spent a year and a half earning, trying to earn your credentials. So just be careful of that. Do a lot of research. Like I said, get on Google. Google is a great resource for this stuff. Do some research. Check out the reviews. Like I said, talk to the recruiter, talk to the instructor, and talk to some of the students. Maybe if they'll give you access to some of the past students, it's a possibility where you can call them up and say, hey, what do you think of this school? Do you think it's worth it? Where are you working at now? What can I expect going here? At the end of the day, a lot of schools, they're just trying to fill seats. So keep that in mind. They're not really interested in what's best for your future. They just need another ass in that chair so they can make that tuition. So be careful with all those. Another route you can go, and this is it's a pretty controversial topic, it's either hit or miss, is you could go the union route. And the union route's kind of the best of both worlds, because they send you to work while you're there. As an apprentice, they send you right out to the work. But you also get to attend classes for free in the evenings and, sometimes specific weeks throughout the year. So when I went through apprenticeship school, it was 2 nights a week, 6:30 to 9:30. They've since changed it to where it's like 2 weeks, back-to-back 2 50-hour weeks every 6 months. So twice a year, you go down to the hall. You're at the hall for, a total of 2 weeks, 50 hours a pop, so 100 hours, and then you're right back on the job site. There's great benefits to it. The problem is, like, the union's really big in the north, some parts of the west, but it's not very big in the south. So depending on which part of the area of the United States you're in, the union might be the only route to go. Whereas, if you're down here in the south, you can start your own business. You can get into it, a bunch of different companies. There's a lot more options down here in the south for that. The thing with the union is they pay great and they have great benefits. You get a pension, you get a 401k. The one thing I didn't have down here when I was with the union is vacation time. So if I had to save up or if I wanted to go on vacation, I had to save up for 2 weeks pay because, there just wasn't any vacation time. But if I, went up to the GC and be like, hey, I need to take a week off 3 weeks from now, they're like, okay, cool, no problem. So it was just like word of mouth, talk to the guy, talk to your foreman and just let them know. And then 9 times out of 10, they didn't have a problem as long as you weren't in the middle of a big shutdown. Or you can wait from, the time one job shuts down and the time another job picks up, kind of work your schedule around that, take vacation during that time. But other than that, you get full medical and dental benefits. Like I said, the pay is great, pension, annuity. So you're set up for retirement. The downside is, everybody makes the same amount of money. So no matter how hard you work, you can go to work every day and give it your damnedest, put in 110%. And the guy next to you, he's only, he showed up and he's not doing a whole lot of work. He's not doing great, but he's good friends with the foreman. He's making the same amount of money you are. I never got along great with that. That was one of the biggest hangups that I had about working for the union. There is still a lot of the good old boy network in there, but I think some of that's being phased out from what I hear. I've sent students to union jobs. I've sent students to non-union jobs, and they're both happy. So it just depends on which route you want to go. I don't want to push anybody one direction or the other because the union's not for everybody, and then working non-union's not for everybody. So figure out which is going to work best for you, your lifestyle, your family, what you want out of life, and go that route. Another pro to working with the union is you get a lot of certifications. So just the 3 years during my apprenticeship, I got a structural steel certification to be able to erect facilities or erect buildings. Let's see, I got OSHA 10, OSHA 30, a crane signalman and rigging, and then I got my AWS D11 and D1.5 1-inch 3G and 4G unlimited on 1-inch plate. So and you can get more. There's a lot more stuff you can do on the weekends. Every once in a while they'll have a Saturday class. You pop in there, you do a Saturday class, you take a test, whether it's practical, written, hands-on, or a combination of the two. And then you get another certification. The more certifications you have, the better jobs you get put on. And some of these jobs, they have higher pay rates because now you're falling into a specialty type category that not everybody can do. So you earn a little bit more money. You get to earn them the government wages. So, that's just a couple different routes you can go. But like I said, look into it, see what's best for you. Whether you want to go to school, whether you want to get into OJT, there's a lot of benefits to both, but weigh them out. And then as far as what can you do to be successful on either one? If you go the student route, let's say you want to go to welding school, the best thing you can do is show up every day, show up on time. And on time is 15 minutes before class. Stay as late as you possibly can, burn every piece of rod, burn every piece of wire that you can while you're in there, weld every single plate that you can, at least attempt to take every certification test that you can because that's going to make you much better, and stay productive. A lot of people in welding school, they're like, oh, well, my plate's too hot, I can't weld on it. So they want to whip out their cell phones and play on that. No, we don't have time for that. We got a quench tank. Go quench your piece, put it back in the booth, it cools it down. Now you can weld on it again. So get as much weld time as you can. Now, like I said, a lot of places, they put more students in than they have booths. So stay productive. If you're not welding, go ahead and start prepping all your coupons. Break out the track torch or the pipe cutter and, start practicing or, prep all your materials. Get everything ground down, get it all cleaned up. That way, once you get booth time, all you're doing is you're in there welding 100% of the time. So make the most out of your time while you're in welding school. Have a positive attitude. That's going to stand true for whatever path you take in life, have a positive attitude with everything that you do. If you're going to go through OJT route, I would say the best thing you could do, again, show up on time, show up every day, stay late when you can, ask as many questions as you can, try to learn as much as you can in that short amount of time that you have those people there. And, especially if there's like older people in that facility that have been doing this, 15, 20, 25 years, make friends with those people, talk to them, because they're going to help you out a lot. But if you walk in there, all cocky and everything, you got all these weld certs, or, you're coming out of school and, you were like number one in your class. Well, guess what? You're back at the bottom of the pecking order once you get out in industry. You're nobody. These people have way more knowledge than you ever will. You might be able to lay down a really slick 3G coupon because you've been practicing it for 6 months. But when it comes down to the practical application of this stuff, you don't know jack. So go in there, keep your mouth shut, keep your ears and eyes open, listen intently, take notes. That's the biggest thing. Whether you're going OJT route or you're going, coming out of school, take notes. Grab you a notepad and, or your cell phone. If you can have a cell phone on the job, bust that out, open up the notes application and start writing down settings, common tool names that you're working with, different formulas for figuring out, spacing or, figuring out a pitch or, whatever you got going on. Take notes, because at some point these older people, they're going to retire, they're going to get out, and you're not going to have that resource. You're going to become that resource. So take as many notes as you can, ask as many questions as you can. I did an episode a while back on the regular Art Junkies podcast. It's episode number 133, and it's 10 things that require zero talent. Go check that out, because those 10 things, they're going to apply whether you go the OJT route or whether you go to the school route. And they're going to make a world of difference. Always be able to, or always be open to doing more. Do more of what's asked of you. And you're going to go far in this industry, because if you're reliable, you show up every day, you're not making excuses why you can't come into work. You can only have so many flat tires. Your grandmother can only die so many times in 1 year. Stop with the excuses, show up and go to work every single day, because you may not feel like you want to go to work today, but by the time Friday comes around, you get that paycheck with all the missed hours in there, you're going to feel like you should have came into work on Tuesday and not laid out. So that's the biggest thing, is be reliable, be a person of your word. If you tell somebody you're going to be there and that you're going to do something, be there and get it done to the best of your ability. That's all anybody can ever ask of you, is give me your best. And sometimes your best isn't good enough, but that effort shows. Like, man, they came in and they tried, they gave it their damnedest. You know what? I'm going to help them out with this on the next time. Maybe we don't put them in that situation just yet. They're not completely prepared to do that type of work. Let's work with them. Let's see where they're at. But they're here every day. They're motivated. It doesn't matter at the end of the day how good of a welder you are, how many welding certs you got. You can walk in there with a stack, 2 inches thick of welding certs. Doesn't matter. If you can't show up every single day and be a person of your word and put forth the effort that you need to, you're not going to last long. I've seen so many people that came in and they thought they were God's gift to welding because they had 16 different weld certs. They've been in school for 18 months and, they're there to just show everybody up. And then we put them on something simple and they can't figure out which end of the combination square to use. So always be humble, be willing to learn, don't be cocky, show up every single day and put in 110%. That's going to get you so much farther in life, regardless of the path that you choose, whether you want to go OJT or whether you want to go the school route or whether you want to join the union. It doesn't matter. And like I said, not everybody has the opportunity to go to school. So I'm not knocking anybody if you plan on not going to school. Like, I know a lot of people that have been in that situation, but if you're that person that, hey, I can't afford to go to school right now. I got a wife, I got a kid, I got a husband, whatever the case may be. I just don't have time for it. I only have time to go to work right now. And then I got a lot of personal things going on. Do that. Get in there, get a job. And then once things calm down, maybe pick up a night class if you can. It's just going to make you that much better. Always invest in yourself. Always invest in yourself. I'm going to say it twice because it's important. You're going to reap the rewards. Like ever since I've gotten out of the 3 different welding schools, I've attended as many classes and seminars as my budget and my schedule can permit. And that's because it's making me a better welder every step of the way. The more knowledge and information that I have, the more I can pass off to the next generation. The better I can be at my job at work. Never be afraid to take that next step. Figure it out. Put some money aside to invest in yourself. whether it's an online class, they offer like a weekend class over the Votech school. Don't be afraid to pick some of this stuff up and go get some additional information and additional education. There's a lot of great resources on, YouTube right now. I mean, there's so many different credible welding channels. Find the credible welding channels, check them out. You can learn different processes there. And then maybe, you can practice during lunch at work. I did that a lot of times. We had different jobs coming up that I didn't really qualify for. So that's what I would do on break and lunchtime is I would go in there and, the journeyman would help set me up with something. And I would just practice that, to get 15 minutes for a break. I'd run a couple coupons, test pieces and stuff like that. Lunchtime comes around, you usually get like 45 minutes. I'd just power feed really quick. And then I'd, go back in there and try and practice and do my best. And, just try and get better at things while everybody else is slacking or, taking a break. Try and put in some additional effort. Or if you can stay late a little bit, the boss man, hey, I see that you're staying late every day to catch up on paperwork. Do you mind if I hang out in the shop and just, weld on some of the scrap material that we were throwing away at the end of the day anyway? 9 times out of 10, they're not going to mind. And they might even come out there and show you a couple things. But you got to be willing to put forth that effort. Nobody's going to, push you, especially once you get out in the industry. Nobody's going to push you to do better. It's very competitive out in the industry. They're going to, a lot of times, a lot of people, and as this is screwed up as it is, they're going to try and stand in your way. They're going to give you crap for trying to, become better. If you want to go to school, they're going to be like, oh yeah, college kid, blah, blah, blah. They're going to give you a lot of crap for doing that because they see potential in you that they don't see in themselves, and it pisses them off. Always put forth that additional effort. Don't worry about what anybody else says. If somebody's there to help you, absorb all the information that you can. If they're there to, talk smack and try and get in your way, don't let them. Don't listen to them. Push past all that and do what's best for you, your family, and your goals. Well, that's pretty much all I've got for this episode. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, you can hit me up on Instagram. You can shoot me an email. If you have an episode idea for Just the Tip Tuesdays that you want me to talk about on here, go ahead. You can fire it off to the Instagram or the email that I just recommended. Send it over to me, and if I pick your topic, I'll give you credit for it, but I'll also send you out a sticker pack. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.